Welcome to the Cripescast. This is the podcast where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest. We are powered by Everlight Solar, and here's this week's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cripescast. We are just days away from the election, and I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you. Thank you, Jesus. This could not come soon enough. You know, I'll tell you this much. If I see one more political ad, I just might put my phone down and start enjoying my life. This, I hope, is going to be the last political episode I do in a while. I know you guys don't follow me for politics or whatever, and I don't really enjoy talking about politics. But before I was a comedian, I was a journalist, and so I've got this maybe compulsion to do it every once in a while. So thanks for bearing with me. And look, here's where it comes from. I think we're more divided than ever. And I think truth is becoming less and less relevant. And it's so frustrating for me as like a former journalist to watch this happen. And what's happened really is as technology has advanced, civility and kindness and Midwest nice, even, it's all declined. You know, we're meaner to each other than we ever have been before because we can't understand how the other side can feel the way they feel. And that's really because some of us are operating with facts and others are operating with lies presented as facts, you know, conspiracies. But the people who believe in conspiracies, they truly believe them. And those are facts to those folks, you know, and the people with like facts need to understand, I think, that those who believe in conspiracies, they're not dumb. They're not ignorant. They're not assholes. They've just been taken advantage of by social media or Russia or China or whoever benefits from division. And I think that's the thing to really look out for. Say to yourself, who's benefiting from division? Those are not the people that we can have running our lives. It's kind of funny, like Russia and China, they benefit from division and they took the playbook from us. Like united we stand, divided we fall. We literally told them how to defeat us on a bumper sticker. You know, it's wild. But the thing is, though, I don't think, even though things are tough right now, this can't mean that we stop trying to get truth across to those who are not receptive to truth. Just because they're not receptive now doesn't mean they won't be. It just means we have to work harder to bring people together so we can stop the division. As hard as it might be, don't cut people out of your life who believe something, even if that something is awful. I think they need you in their life more than ever. And over time, I think we can kindly plant the seeds of truth. The frustrating thing is it does take time. And again, technology is doing this to us. You know, social media companies have trained their algorithms, literally trained their algorithms to favor conflict over cooperation because conflict, it's what keeps you engaged. Just look at reality TV, for instance. You know, have you ever seen a reality TV show where everyone got along the entire time? No, of course not, because that would have been canceled by the first episode. Social media is about inventing conflict in the same way reality TV is all about inventing conflict. You know, here's the thing. I think the more we let our leaders rebrand truth, the more people will feel like they're just going crazy. And division plus crazy can easily lead us into civil war. It can. Nothing makes China and Russia happier than us fighting with each other. You know, that's why they account for so many of the Twitter users or X users or whatever Elon calls it. They are there to sow division, and it's working. It's working real good, actually. So look, that is all a long way of saying that I am trying my best to help with these episodes. I know it's hard to hear about politics. I know we just want a break from it. And I think the rest of my content is a break from it. And for those who are seeking something else, some sort of sanity and all this, that's what I'm trying to bring to the table. And no, I'm not perfect. And, you know, I'm as susceptible as anybody to misinformation and all of that. We all are susceptible to that. And so I guess I'm very humbly trying to find the truth on this podcast. And I'm trying to create just good discussion between people from opposite ends of the political sphere even. And that's sort of what this week's episode is about. You're about to hear a political conversation with Steve Scaffidi, who's the host of the Steve Scaffidi Show on WTMJ in Milwaukee. He's the former mayor of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. He is a Republican. And also Dan Shafer, who is the political editor of Civic Media, the founder of the Recombobulation Area. And though Steve leans to the right and Dan leans to the left, I chose these guys because they both deeply care about the facts, and they both make sure that they are relying on facts to form their opinions. And that is unfortunately becoming rarer and rarer these days. So bottom line, I just want us to be less divided, and I want us to be guided by truth. And I want us to, do that so we can enjoy, this is humanity's honeymoon period, or it should be, before there's a million robots running the road, running around on the road, those AI robots, before we've got them around here influencing even more. It's like, let's, as humanity, just get on the same page first. So, all right, I am off the soapbox, but here's this week's episode. We filmed this live at Vivarium in Milwaukee. Thanks, guys. Are you ready for a good show tonight? Excellent, excellent. All right, well, I've got a sheet right here with some questions on it, but if any of you guys have questions, we've got Colleen. Where is Colleen at? Back there. Okay, so if you guys have questions, raise your hand and she'll kind of be looking around and you can bring it up. And if you ask a question, you don't like what somebody's saying on stage, we're going to play a game where you have to ask the question the most Midwest nice way you can, So you got to offer a casserole, throw in an ope there, a sorry for breathing kind of a thing, Anyways, it'll be fun. But really, this is just a conversation. And by the way, when I put up this thing that I was doing this and talking about politics, I had a bunch of people say, don't get involved in politics. Don't do this. But I think that's kind of the problem right now is that a lot of us, we're not talking to each other and therefore not understanding each other. And therefore, we're kind of divided right down the middle. That's all we're doing, just trying to do it. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for host WTMJ, former mayor of Oak Creek, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Scaffidi. Give him a big round of applause. Good to see you. I'm doing good. Have a seat right there. And also welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. He is the political editor of Civic Media. He is the founder of the Recombobulation Area. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Shafer. Give him a big round of applause. Nice to see you, Dan. These couches are, well, I don't, that might be, is that going to be goofy? Why don't you want to sit and see if it's comfortable there? Otherwise, I can sit right there.
I like that.
You like that? Okay. That's really nice. That doesn't look, do these mics work here too? Okay. Testing.
Here.
Oh, yeah,
there
real good.
I'm good.
Nice. I like this. How you guys feeling? You doing good?
I'm good. It's a good crowd.
Yeah, it is a good crowd. Give yourselves a big round of applause for coming out here tonight. And if you don't know Steve and you don't know Dan, I'll let them kind of give their spiel in a second here. But the brief note is one leans right, one leans left. And so the idea here is that we can have a conversation about politics and it doesn't need to be a shit show. So that's kind of the goal here. But Dan, can you tell us about yourself, how you got your start and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, well, I am currently the political editor at Civic Media. Just recently joined the Civic Media network over the last couple months here. Many people in the audience might know my work as the founder of the Recombobulation Area. Hey, all right. Got some fellow recombobulators in the audience. But yeah, I was been a journalist in and around Milwaukee for much of the past, 10, 15 years. And a few years ago, I wanted to start writing something with a voice, with an opinion, with a perspective, So I started the Recombobulation Area on Substack in late 2019 while I was a stay-at-home dad. Grew the publication over the last few years, made it my full-time job, formed a small business, and then this year made the jump to the Civic Media Network. So hopefully many of you have had the opportunity to subscribe and check out my words at the Recombobulation Area. I always loved the name, the Recombobulation Area. Of course,
it is a great name.
The post-security place at the Milwaukee airport. I now get many people tweeting pictures of themselves at the actual Recombobulation Area at me, which I always enjoy. But we have such a discombobulating politics in the state of Wisconsin, and I thought the Recombobulation Area would be a great name for an opinion column where you kind of take stock of things, piece everything together, and make your way to your destination.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Very long bio, but good one.
Yeah, well, Steve,
long.
now it's your turn. And if you don't mention the fact that you were a marathon runner.
Long time ago.
You guys he ran 26.2, whatever. I don't know. I'm not good at math, but
I could run the .2 right now.
Can you run the .2? I'd like to see that,
pretty
actually.
fast, but that'd be about it. I actually have worked with Dan because Dan was on my show for at least a year plus.
Yeah.
And not to get off my bio, which is also amazing and interesting, Dan is really good at his job. He does long form looks at state races. I don't know that there's anybody looks at it in more detail with more accurate depictions of what the race is really doing, the people that are running for office, than he does. So it was a joy to have him on the show. He went to Civic Media. I do the morning show on WTMJ. Not to be historical, it used to be where Charlie Sykes was. A lot of evolution at our station. We used to be a Scripps-owned company. Now we're by Good Karma Brands. Sort of changed the dynamic of talk radio. Still sort of feeling our way. I love talking about politics, but I'll tell you right now, most politics is bullshit as it's presented now. It's sort of a waste of time. A lot of nonsense. So I try to parse through the nonsense as best I can. Sometimes it's not possible. But I enjoy what I do. Like a lot of you, I'm apprehensive about what's going to happen next Tuesday. I actually volunteered. My wife says I'm nuts. I volunteered to work from 11 to 5 a.m. live on the radio, mostly by myself, because I always stay up anyway, and I have for all the elections I've been alive for, basically since as an adult. I'm just fascinated by it, and there's so many storylines in this election. I know that people are nervous. Some people are excited. I have people that work on the campaigns, some people that come on the show that actually work in Mar-a-Lago. So I get that inside information. That's one of the things I pride myself on. It's having the great guests. But when Charlie reached out to me, I said, I want to do this because I love talking about the possibility of conversation that's not stupid and dumb. And I think we're going to do that.
Well, I hope so, but you really set the bar high right there. I prefer
too much pressure.
I just did 20 minutes of jokes to let them know that this was not going to be serious in any nature. But anyways, thanks. Well, let's kind of jump off on that point. I want to talk about like the division in politics, and I think like we got Thanksgiving coming up, and we all got that one uncle that's a real expert on things. Whatever it is, right or left. But how do you have real, authentic conversations with people in your family, especially maybe Hannah, who works with me, she is on the younger side of life, and she brought up having a hard time having conversations with people who are older than her, thinking like she doesn't know anything. And so like what are just some good tips for having productive political conversations with family and friends?
For me, it's keep it light, right? I mean, there are families now that are literally torn apart because of what's happened in the last, let's say, 8 years. And that's sad. And whenever anybody tells me one of those stories, and I get that, I get a lot of emails, a lot of texts from people that say, I can't talk to my brother anymore, and we were so close for 50 years, and that's sad on a lot of different levels. But for me, I have brothers-in-laws that are Trump supporters. My wife's very liberal. I call myself a reasonable, rational conservative, and full disclosure, I never voted for Donald Trump, and I'm proud that I haven't. I understand why people do it. I don't blow people up for voting for him because that's the world we have. We have two choices, and people make choices based on one issue, many issues. But for me, it's about doing it in a way, at a conversation. It can be a lighter conversation at a dinner table where you're just saying to each other, "This is the world we live in. What are we doing here? Why are we going to hate each other because of this election or the election that just happened in 2020. It seems silly to me. So I would start at light. I would listen. I used to do this thing. It's a little bit of a deviation, but I used to do this thing called Amazing Faiths Dinner, and they gathered people of all different faiths, and we ate dinner together. And you listen to each other talk for 5 minutes. Each person got one card. You had a subject. You talked for 5 minutes. Everyone else listened. And we went around the table, 12 to 14 people. And at the end, you could ask questions, but it forced us to listen. And we are, I think, not as good of listeners as we should be, especially when it comes to politics. That would be my advice. Just listen better and don't overreact to whatever the person says, even if it horrifies the you-know-what out of you. Can we swear?
Yo, yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
If it horrifies the shit out of you, you still got to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
I didn't go full.
I don't know if shit counts anymore. They say it on the news now.
I thought about that. I was going to go full F word, but I held back.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I think, I've been a guest on Steve's show for a while, and one of the things that we always talk about, even though we disagree on a lot of things, is we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think having that baseline level of respect is a really important aspect of being able to have those types of conversations.
You should applaud that. That's good.
And, just within this election season, I've had the opportunity to tag along with some candidates who are knocking on people's doors. And that can be an unpredictable experience, right? But I think for many of the more successful ones that I've seen on doors, they start not with talking about which party they're a part of or who's running for president or whatever it is. They try to find common ground. And finding common ground, I think, often starts with the issues and not necessarily with the individuals. Because the individuals, everybody has an opinion on Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris or whatever it might be. But if you talk about the issues, if you talk about education, if you talk about healthcare, different types of issues, that's where you can find more common ground because it's less colored by the red team, blue team of it all.
Isn't that interesting? The teams. I was going to bring that up because what politics has become, I feel like recently, is we're literally wearing different hats. Like we become like a team thing. It's become Packers versus Bears. Of course, in that scenario, the Bears are always wrong, and there's no excuse to be a Bears fan. And if you are a Bears fan, you need to seek professional help. Okay.
It's also not Packers Bears because sometimes both teams win. Right?
Yeah. Well, you got that go. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true. The Bears have had a long, history of being owned by the Packers, but not to bring up an Aaron Rodgers quote, but why not? He's having a tough go of it right now, so that's all right. Sorry, Aaron. Yeah, better. The thing about a Packer going to the Jets, probably not going to work out historically speaking. The only thing you get out of that is crock shots. But anyways, so you bring up the issues. What do you guys think are the biggest issues on the ballot this year?
Dan, you go first.
Yeah, I think with any election, I think the biggest issue is almost always the economy. The polling will suggest that is the number one issue. And then I think you've got a pretty big partisan split on which is the next most important issue. I do, one of the things that I do at the Recombobulation Area, I do a breakdown of every new Marquette University Law School poll. There's one coming out tomorrow, so I'll be writing about that tomorrow. For Republicans, the number 2 issue is the border and immigration policy. And for Democrats, the number 2 issue is abortion and reproductive rights. A huge issue. Yes, absolutely. So I think you see that, people have their certain priorities and it depends on which party they're a part of. And I also think this has been a really difficult issue to poll because people have different ways of perceiving a word like election integrity or faith in elections or democracy or something like that. But I do think it is a huge issue, after January 6th. After everything that the Republicans did to try to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election, I just think basic fundamental American democracy is right there in with everything as one of the top issues in this campaign.
So I have a feeling in this election, and it's based on my feelings and what I hear from people, what I read when they send me texts and emails. And the way radio works now is I don't take calls anymore. I only have an hour of just politics, but the text line churns, the emails churn from people who are listening and have thoughts about what we're saying. I have a feeling about this election, and it goes back to the sort of the reversal of what has been the law of the land when it comes to abortion in this country. I have a feeling women are going to show up in this election in a really significant way. And I think they're going to speak loudly on the issue. And somebody asked me the other day, who do I think is going to win? Well, it's just a prediction. I just have a feeling that Kamala Harris will win this race. And as a Republican, that doesn't bother me because I, as I said before, the alternative is something that I don't like and I didn't vote for. But I think that issue is so important. It's on people's minds. And I think when everything shakes out, whatever that's Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, Saturday, whatever it is, the role of women in this election, I think, will be the deciding factor. Republican women who choose not to vote for Donald Trump, and women in general, young women, middle-aged, older women who said, you know what, no, I don't like this, and I'm going to go vote. And I think that shows so far in the turnout, and I'm impressed by it. That's a good thing.
And I just want to say, too, if there are, I'm sure there are Trump supporters in this audience, too, and, feel free to, bring up a question or whatever, just because, these guys have not voted for Trump doesn't mean that that's not, half the country is going that way. So it's a safe space is what I'm trying to tell you right now, 1,000%. So feel free to ask a question and bring up a point, and because, we don't want it to all be on that route. Colleen, I'll let you find a question if there is one out there. But while we do that, Wisconsin, once again, is at the center of kind of the political universe. And this is an election where, if you trust the polls, and some people do, some people don't. But this is a situation where Donald Trump could win the popular vote nationally, yet still lose because of the Electoral College. In 2016, it was reversed. And I think that brings up the question of the Electoral College. What do we think about the Electoral College? Do we like being deciding the future of the United States of America on a regular basis?
No, the Electoral College is ridiculous. The argument about it saying that it's ignores certain states. Well, we have 7 swing states that are going to determine the fate of the country, and nobody campaigning on a national level is going to maybe swing areas in, Washington State or New York or Alabama or wherever, and you just have this hyper-concentrated pressure cooker dynamic in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona, and that's going to determine billions of dollars pumped into those, 7 states to determine the outcome. It's an absurd way to do this. We need to reform this process one way or another.
So Dan and I have a common friend. His name is Phil Rocco. He's the associate professor of political. Oh, someone knows
Shout out Phil.
Brilliant guy. He's an expert on Electoral College. I just did the podcast with him this week. In 1968, they almost got rid of it. And it didn't, again, some states want to keep it and they couldn't get past the legal, the congressional hurdle to change it. It's a very controversial thing that we do here. So we have a nation that says, that's my candidate, that's our president. But the Electoral College sort of comes in under the rug and says, hold on a second, these 7, 6, 5, whatever it is, states will decide what happens. I don't have the answer to this because there are states that are very, very small that essentially will be ignored if we don't have it, right? And maybe that's just because there's not many people there, that maybe that's the right thing to do.
Because right now, big states are being ignored.
Yeah, it can go both ways. It gives little states power, electoral college, but if you get rid of it, college, they would have no power. They don't have enough people. And I always love this debate because it's people vote, land doesn't. And we got a lot of land out west with not many people in, but they also have a say now because of the Electoral College. Fascinating.
But don't you think that even in some of those smaller states, we have so much data now about where people vote in these voting patterns that you're still going to have, you might still have Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaigning in Green Bay, even if we have a national popular vote, because that's where the swing voters are.
That's a great point, because if we didn't have it, they would have to go everywhere, right? You want votes.
Wait. So what you're saying is whether we change it or not, we're still going to have to deal with this?
So you just want to get rid of all of the campaigns part.
Yeah. I just don't want to hear so much about it. But, that's me being a little cynical fella.
I think it would just be a little bit more spread out.
There
are different swing areas in each and every state. And I'm just pointing out Green Bay because I think that's a swing area right now in Wisconsin. But I think you go to any state in the South, any state in the West, big states, small states, you're going to have swing voters in each of them.
Yeah.
And you want those campaigns to reach each and every one of those people and hear what they have to say, hear what the issues that matter to them. And right now it's just, the blue wall and a couple other states, and that's it.
I wonder if people in like a state that doesn't really count in this election, they're going one way or the other hard. Are they even getting these commercials? Or are they just watching TV
No.
like
No.
regular people?
Yeah, they
None of
don't
this
even know
stuff.
there's an election.
God,
going
that's
on.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Like you go to Ohio, nothing's happening
nothing
there.
there.
No.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best way.
I do want to say, so let's say hypothetically, let's say if the Democrats win this time because of the Electoral College, is there going to be any political motivation for Democrats to change it? Because the Republicans did not have the political motivation when Trump won. So is this going to be kind of like gerrymandering, where if it works for my party, I'm not going to fix it, and that both parties are guilty of it? Or do you think one party has more incentive to get rid of it than another?
No.
No, nobody.
Who's going to change the rules when the rules are in your favor? That takes a brave soul to do that. Very rare.
Yeah. So you think there's just no hope for this?
No, I'm always full of hope. That's why you asked me why we want to have these conversations, because at some point maybe everyone will get sick of the way it is. So there'll be this upswell of starting to pick candidates in smaller races who then become senators or congressmen or congresswomen or governors, who then get higher positions where they can actually affect change. Nothing happens fast in this country. Except Elon Musk. He gets everything done really.
Yeah. If you're a billionaire, you can buy
anything.
something.
Anything.
Yeah, you can buy the world, honestly. Let's talk about the Elon of it all and the money in politics. And this isn't just on the right. I mean, the Democrats, I think they've raised like $1 billion for
They outspend Republicans.
They outspend Republicans, and the amount, and it's dark money. You have no idea where it's coming from, and that's a problem. Left, right, and center. Is there a possibility of us getting the money out of politics? And that way, they actually have to make a good political ad. They can't just throw a bunch of, this person's going to take your child and cut their throat.
Tammy Baldwin is gay.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Surprising.
Yeah, newsflash. I didn't need a commercial.
That's your commercial. Thank you. Here's $100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think that there's any hope in getting the money out of politics? Because we are run by these two machines, and both machine is very incentivized.
I think we agree on this one.
What?
It should be out of politics.
I mean, yeah, but again, with the Electoral College, we're talking about some sort of systemic reform, and we can't even get like basic things done in this country right now, much less, realign the way that we elect people or get money out of politics. Like here in Wisconsin, the Uline family, Dick and Liz Uline, who own the Uline company based in Wisconsin, I think the last report said that they are the third biggest political donors in the entire country and have spent more than $125 million supporting Republicans in this election. Like, it's just, and the more you cover this stuff, campaigns, elections, things like that, even at the local level, even in the state legislature, so much of it comes back to the fundraising. So much of it comes back to the money element, and it can make you really cynical about this. But I think, yes, there's hope for this in the future, though, because I do think the more that people recognize this, the more that people can organize and stay engaged on these types of issues, that change still is possible.
What if we chip away at one element of it? Like for that 125 mil, is that tax deductible? It's not tax deductible.
I don't think so.
As far as they've probably found some loophole to do it.
Okay. All right. I
don't think they really care when you're a billionaire.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, I suppose, what is it if it's like $25, Let's talk about the key races in Wisconsin and politically, because based on what you guys are saying, a big amount of the change, a large amount of the change that's going to happen is going to happen very locally. And Dan, I know that you do a lot diving into the state races and everything. So you guys from sort of the right and the left in Wisconsin, what are the big races going on that a lot of people aren't talking about?
Yeah, well, beyond the obvious, the presidential race, the statewide Senate race, things like that, The state legislature is in a really interesting place right now because we finally have new, fairer maps for the Wisconsin state legislature for the first time in more than a decade. And that, came to fruition after so many years of voting in election after election. So it just reminds you of just how much every race matters in Wisconsin. But you look down ballot. I did a preview at this at the Recombobulation Area and Civic Media. Yeah, I'm the one guy crazy enough to write a preview of all 115 races happening in the Wisconsin state legislature.
100,000 words or something like
that. Yeah,
Jeez.
Crazy.
And so you can take a look through that, explore the race in your community, because so many of the things that happen in the state come back to the state legislature. And for so long, because of the gerrymandered maps, the Wisconsin state legislature has not been accountable to the people of Wisconsin, have not been addressing some of these majority type issues. And so, in my preview, there were, I identified 12 toss-up or close races in the Wisconsin State Assembly. Some are right around here in the Milwaukee area. Assembly District 21, David Marsteller going against Jesse Rodriguez. Assembly District 61 with Luann Bird against Bob Donovan. Those are the types of races that you might be seeing a couple ads here and there for. Those are the types of races that are going to determine the future of what happens in the state of Wisconsin on so many issues, on healthcare, on education, on college education funding, on marijuana legalization, on Medicaid expansion, abortion rights. Every issue that you hear about in Wisconsin on a day-to-day basis when it's not election season, that comes back to these races that are happening in the Wisconsin State Assembly and State Senate. So there are so many really interesting ones that are in play right now. Another one I'd point out, the Senate District 8 in the region here, kind of the North Shore suburbs, Ozaukee County. Republican incumbent Dewey Strobel is going against Democrat Jody Habush-Sinekin. That is one of the most interesting races happening anywhere in the state right now.
I'm fascinated by all these races. I'm fascinated to watch the assembly. I love the Hovde Baldwin race. She typically kicks butt in elections. Lots of money poured into this race. My Republican friends, strategist friends who are on my show say, I don't know, Hovde seems to be creeping up. If Trump wins, does Hovde win? I actually said on the show, and I think I said it earlier, I think Harris wins. And I'm not sure about that race. I'm just not sure about it.
Yeah.
It's close.
What are you seeing as the elements that Hovde, why do you think it's working for him? Is it the mustache or what? Did he look at a Paul Bunyan and be like, yeah, I want that Paul Bunyan porno stash. That's what I want.
When I first saw him, he looks like an actor on General Hospital to me.
He does.
It's like...
That's working in his favor, by the way.
It's a
my
classic.
aunt is a big fan, and I think that mustache has a lot to do with it.
Let's bring him back. I had a mustache for 25 years.
Do you have a mustache for 25 years?
25 years.
You should bring that back.
I should bring that shit back, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Let's start a campaign for that.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is making that race so close?
Money.
Money. Yeah.
Certainly, Hovde is an interesting dude. Why I think it's close and why I think he has a chance to win is that some people, some voters, especially Republican voters, admire someone who has sort of made this amazing business in his case a bank, and they admire that, and they, some cases, aspire to that, and they see that as a role model, so that'll get them some votes. There's also this thing about fatigue with candidates. Tammy Baldwin has served 2 terms. I mean, Ron Johnson told us once that was all he was going to serve, and then what happened there? So you can change your mind too. But she, there's some of that voter fatigue. She's had her chance. Who's next? So I think that's what the dynamic is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the race started to tighten up when we saw a lot of money being pumped into it. As soon as we saw like the Uline's super PAC, Mitch McConnell's super PAC putting tens of millions of dollars into this race, that seemed to tighten it up a little bit. But I also think that people thinking that Tammy Baldwin was going to be a runaway favorite this year was a little bit overstating things too, because this is Wisconsin. It's always going to be a toss-up, especially in a presidential year. So you're going to get a ton of people who are going to come to the polls and just vote straight for whatever party it is. So if you're going to vote for Donald Trump, you're probably going to be voting for Eric Hovde too. And so as we see these polls that are just show Wisconsin neck and neck, I think that's a big reason why we're seeing that in the Senate race too, because there's not that many split ticket voters in the state of Wisconsin. And I think, the ones who are really make a huge difference in the state. And we saw that 2 years ago when Tony Evers and Ron Johnson both were reelected. And so I think it just goes to show, one, how important your vote is in Wisconsin, and how many of those independent or undecided or moderate votes that these candidates can win over. But I also think going into this year thinking that Baldwin was the clear favorite the whole time, I think that was overstating things too. I think it was always going to be an incredibly close race. This is Wisconsin. We have incredibly close races here. That's just the way our politics are.
Folks, excuse the interruption, but I just want to let you know the Cripescast is powered by Everlight Solar. We got the solar panels on the roof. It is saving us money. It is also helping save the environment. And so if you guys are interested in doing the same thing, check out everlightsolar.com. Hit them up for a free consultation. And also, ladies and gents, Fleet Farm is there for all your hunting needs. Deer season is here. It is underway. And if you need deer blinds or camo or blaze orange, head on over to the Fleet Farm, maybe a new bow, check them out. And I got to say, you're trying to get them leaves up? Well, Fleet Farm's got your rakes, your blowers, the whole deal. And even with winter coming up, you need a snowblower. You know where to go. Fleet Farm, ladies and gentlemen, everything you need in one stop. Check them out. Fleet Farm today. All right. And finally, folks, October it's over, but don't worry, we still got a bunch of deals on mantalkmint.com. We got hoodies, koozies, cribbage boards, all sorts of things for the upcoming holidays. Are we doing Christmas stuff already? I suppose. Check it out, cripescast.com. Click on the merch section, and you can get all your stuff there. Also, I've got my tour dates listed on cripescast.com under the tour section, and you can subscribe to patreon.com/Charlie Barons, or you get it, Charlie Barons on Patreon. Forget the exact website, but and we'll give you behind the scenes stuff, extra sketches, first look at tickets, some free fan giveaways, and a whole lot more. All right, without further ado, let's get back to my conversation with Steve and Dan. Do we have any audience questions at this point, Kelly?
I see a hand right there.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear an audience question. That's great.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Real good.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw a hand over here. Where are you
From the darkness.
Here we go.
There we go. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
My name is Mark.
Mark, where are you from?
Cudahy.
Oh, nice.
I grew up in Cudahy. I love you.
Yeah. All you had to say is where you're from, and he loves you.
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
awesome.
I'm okay with you, Steve.
All right. I get that all the time.
All right. I hear one of the candidates call the other one a Marxist or a communist all the time, and it's clear that he doesn't know what the difference between the two is. I am a beneficiary of fine public education in the city of Cudahy, so I know the difference. I also know what a fascist is. They both call each other fascist. Do you believe one of these candidates is a fascist, and which one?
Whoa, that was quite the leading question there.
Cudahy ain't messing around tonight. I love that.
Yeah, guys, why don't you jump into that one? I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back.
The words that people throw around in elections, you take it with a grain of salt. I don't think either one of these candidates fit that profile. I said I didn't vote for Trump, and I won't this time. He's a very unique person. Let me just put it that way. I don't like his style. I don't like the words he uses. He uses words that are hurtful, dangerous, using words to create these dramas and things that don't have to be part of elections. That's just the world we live in now, and whether it's social media, the culture we live in, reality TV.
Let me ask you this, because there are a lot of Trump supporters, and Trump brings something to the table. So if you guys had to say something nice about Trump,
I'll say this: the way he handled this issue was horrifically wrong, but paying attention to the border and the border policy in this country, something that we should have done decades ago, and both parties have messed around with it. I can actually, and I played it on the show, I can take audio from Democrats who say the same things Republicans say now, and they said it 10 years ago. Everyone's flipped on it. we should have some policy that makes sense. So I would say, if I'm going to say something nice, that was where it would end, because every way he's handled that issue has been horrifically bad, my opinion.
I'm going to bring up a very specific
You got to say something nice
local
about him.
issue that Donald Trump actually helped out with in Milwaukee. In 2020, his administration provided the funding for the bus rapid transit line that now runs in Milwaukee, the Connect One line that goes from downtown to the west side. That project probably wouldn't have happened without funding from the Trump administration. So yes, I'm not going to talk about any like broad-based issues that I'm going to agree with Trump on, but in that very specific instance, funding a public transit project in Milwaukee, I think that was a good thing.
What about the wars that we have going on? Obviously, you have Ukraine and Russia, and then you have Israel, and we are certainly helping Israel quite a bit from the financial aspect of it, but the people in Lebanon who have nothing to do with this, the people in Gaza who have nothing to do with this are, a lot of them are being killed in crazy numbers. What is a way of coming up with, how do we solve the problem in the Middle East, but how do we, what are the elements on the right and the left that could help in coming up with a solution on this?
Since I'm the right side representative, it takes conservatives, Republicans, right-leaning individuals, citizens saying, okay, we may be pro-Israel, but we shouldn't be in favor of innocent people being slaughtered. There has to be, even in wars, there's rules of engagement, right? You can't just willy-nilly throw bombs. And I understand this is the hot button of all hot buttons in the world.
Yeah.
And it always has been, for the most part. So we get it, but we have to have consideration for the other side. And I'll take this from a perspective of being proud of this administration that I frankly didn't vote for. I wrote a Nikki Haley in 2020, so that was my choice. And I'm a big Nikki Haley fan because she was a governor, and I like the leadership part of that. But when you're looking at these situations, it has to be a reasonable accommodation for both sides. It's not a one-sided argument. It's not Republican and Democrat. That's not how wars are fought. That's not how the world works. It has to be a consideration. This goes to the overarching theme of what just pisses me off the most. We have Congress, makes the laws, spends the money, and they play games constantly with the budget, extending all their deadlines, not having the resources and the smarts to fix these things. If we keep doing this, it's on us. We keep sending these people to Washington, D.C. They're not electing themselves. All of us are electing those folks. So if you don't like it, get different people in there.
And that's a great point. But once we get them in there, I feel like they're going to do that no matter who it is. So how do we, as
I
people...
don't think so. I think there are individuals who are... Look, I was a big Paul Ryan fan. And I know some people don't like Paul Ryan. But he was a guy who understood... What? Yeah,
I don't like Paul.
Yeah, I know. And fair question. I got to know him very well because I was mayor. He was my congressman. And we did a lot of work together. So I got to know the individual. Look, there's no perfect solution on this stuff. There's no one idea. It's not one Democratic idea, one Republican idea. If you think that, you're wrong. And until we get past that, we're not going to make any progress. So how do we change what they do in Congress? One, get better people. Actually have a leader, in this case it's the president, who understands the dynamics of Congress and doesn't pick fights with them, doesn't play games, political or otherwise. Once you sort of set up a new structure for how it works, what Paul Ryan told me was, it's not words, it's the things you do. And until we understand that, it's just words. And as I said at the beginning, it's just political bullshit.
And so how can we applaud. I don't want to step on your applause.
It was limited, but I'll take it.
How can we hold those people accountable once we elect them? Like, does calling them help? Does shooting an email help?
No.
What's an effective way to hold the people that we put in office, hold them accountable?
You know what it is? It's going to Washington, D.C. You can actually make an appointment with your senator, your congressperson, get into their office and talk to them one-on-one. I did it twice last year. Did you know that? You can make an appointment with their staff and talk to them.
Oh, I was.
Wow.
That was a nice to have time like that, Steve. Someone shot back. So someone who maybe doesn't have the money to book an appointment, but that is good to know. You can book an appointment and all that sort of stuff. But
They also have listening sessions back here.
I got another question in the
let's
audience,
move on.
Charlie.
Yeah, go ahead from the audience.
By the bar.
All right, by the bar. This should be a good one.
Hi. I'm gonna be nice. I'm very Midwest nice.
All right.
What's your name? Where are you from?
I'm Summer. I'm from Bayview in Milwaukee. So.
All right, Summer,
Yeah.
real good.
So I have a question about the general topic of body autonomy, because I know people who say, why should I get a COVID vaccine? It's my body. It's my right to decide what to do with my body. Or they might say, it's my right to have a gun to protect my house. But then the same people want to put into place laws that control a woman's body. So it's I can't reconcile those two with the same person is saying these two very different things. So what is it? Is it, that we want to be independent and we want personal freedom? Where do we go from here, and why are there these two very different opinions about personal freedoms in our country?
Good question.
We're all
Well said, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's clearly a certain level of hypocrisy on the right on this issue, and that's become really clear in the last couple of years since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And I think this campaign, I think the right likes to trumpet up the freedom aspect of where they are on so many different issues, but I think when it comes to women's rights, it's a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different. And so I think obviously there's a certain level of hypocrisy there, but it is, people have different definitions of freedom as well. And I think you have a different definition of freedom on the left. I think, when the vaccines were the main issue in the country, there were people saying, how could you support a woman's right to control her own body and support a vaccine mandate at the same time? I think there are obvious reasons for that, for public health reasons, and at the same time, you're trying to make decisions for the betterment of the country. But I think that it just comes down to people have different views of what freedom is, and the right seems to have a different view of what freedom means for women in particular.
I just think it's too easy to just say the right and the left, because there's so many different levels on every issue. Whether it's abortion, I can show you pro-life Democrats and pro-choice Democrats. Same thing on the other side. It's too easy, and we're talking about trying to mend some of this stuff. It's too easy, in my opinion, to just say they're all saying that. They're not. I on many of these issues, I agree with Dan. So the reason, like somebody asked me why you're Republican, because I believe in small government. I believe in balanced budgets at every level. That's the main reason. And how that translates to all of these issues is I listen. I want us to make the best legislation that we can as a country with all parties represented. We should never think that everybody thinks alike on an issue. It's just not the way it's going to be. It's never going to be that way. It's an interesting country. It's the greatest country in my mind because everybody wants to be here from all over the world. They want to come to this country. They want to learn here. They want to raise their family here. If we're such a shithole, why is that the case? Why would they all want to come here? Everything that we do as a country should be measured by equality, real equality. Not one version for men, not one version for women. That's silly, it's outdated, and it needs to go. And it will go. You elect the right people that have those same ideas, you can get to that solution. History, time, all of these things are in the way of making these fast changes. We don't do that. All of this stuff changes slowly over time. We'll get there. That's the way I maintain hope.
All right, hard-hitting question. Charlie, biggest fish you ever caught and what type of fish it was?
Yeah.
And then political question. Next Tuesday, what race are the two of you guys watching that is not the Senate or presidential race that you think will be telling of the election results broadly on Tuesday night?
Good question.
Or potentially even all the way through Saturday.
Yeah, great question. To answer your first one, biggest fish I caught was a 52-inch muskie on the Bay of Green Bay with my grandpa Bob, and he got a 54-incher right after that. One of the greatest days. Thank you. Greatest days of my life right there.
Wow.
And I could tell you like second, third, fourth, fifth place, but we'll just leave it at the muskie for right now. But guys, what elections are you going to be watching on election night?
One election.
What's that?
One election.
One election.
One race. What race are you looking at? Yeah.
All right, yeah. Which one?
Okay, so obviously I'm the guy who's written about all 115 races in the Wisconsin state legislature, right? So one that I think is especially critical is in the Green Bay area. There's a toss-up state Senate seat there in District 30, and then within that, there are 2 state assembly races in District 88 and District 89. I think those races are going to be the ones that determine who wins the majority in the Wisconsin State Assembly. So I will be looking very closely at the results from Brown County, because I think if Democrats win there, I think they win Wisconsin, and I think Harris wins the presidency. No pressure, Green Bay.
Steve, what about you?
It's the Van Orden Cook race, Western Wisconsin, for Congress. She's impressive. I'm not a big fan of Van Orden. Some people are, some conservatives are. He's Navy SEAL, did all that stuff. I'm proud of that, and proud American of anyone that serves. But she has fought a race coming out of nowhere, and her story's amazing, and she is everywhere. She knows how to campaign, and she's very young. He's sort of this, grouchy, I would say typical conservative. That's sort of the role model that we see now. And it's like, I think she can win this race. And I predicted it on my podcast the other day. That's if she wins, this is a much different election day, I think, in Wisconsin.
Great question. Thank you for the question.
That's an awesome question.
We got another back here.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Big fan.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
My name's Sylvia.
Where are you from, Sylvia?
From Virginia, but I live in Milwaukee now.
Good for you.
Sure,
Welcome to
whatever.
Milwaukee, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, why do people in like the same area have like the same-ish political view?
Oh, that's a really good question. Why is it that Dane County everyone can count on, the Fox Valley Republicans can count on? Why do we are we infecting each other with our political viruses? What's going on there, guys?
It hasn't always been that way, but it has been a huge determination of what political party you live with, you vote for based on where you live. And I think there is a huge rural-urban divide that has been amplified in the Trump era, especially. And so I think there's a huge divide there. You look at the map of Wisconsin at the end of election night, there's a few blue spots around the state and a sea of red. And so obviously that is a big part of our politics across the state, but I think it is changing though. And I think you see the changes in suburban areas in particular that have been zooming to the left in a lot of these communities. Whitefish Bay, Wauwatosa, those are places that are becoming more democratic, and you're having more Republicans are really driving up numbers in rural areas. And I think Wisconsin has been such a prime example of this in so many ways. And I think, people do tend to sort themselves based on, their core beliefs, their core values, and that translates into political viewpoints. But I think we are seeing that really change in a lot of really significant ways too.
Yeah, I mean, it's the political representation of what used to happen with race, and in some places still does, where people separate or isolate themselves from a group that looks differently, or even some places in the world pray differently. That's a problem, and that sort of works against what we're trying to talk about is sort of coming together. I would ask Dan this question: is the immense Democratic base of Dane, is that a great thing, or should it be more politically diverse? What do you think? Because I think if we don't solve this problem, we're going to just get more and more isolated from each other geographically, and then I don't know where you can find anything to share common ground on.
Yeah, I think, so I spent some time over the last couple of weeks in the Fox Valley doing some reporting, and I think that's a really key swing area. And I think having lots of people from both political parties in the region forces you to come together a little bit more, forces you to have more bipartisan, place more of a priority on bipartisanship. But is your question whether or not it's good in Dane County to have those types
Is
of margins?
it a good thing for one group of people, whatever that delineation is, to be the sole representation of that district, city, town, county? I would argue that it's not really a good thing.
Maybe not, but I think Dane County just encompasses so many of the different trends that are happening now. You have urban areas that are voting overwhelmingly for Democrats, and places in the suburbs, the Sun Prairies of the world, that are now voting in crazy margins for Democrats. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I think it's just emblematic of where we are right now.
And and I do think it just is interesting to have to listen to the other side, whatever it is, and without it being an egregious violation to you, but like just listening and kind of coming together, because we do have a lot more common ground than I think we give ourselves credit for on the right and the
My
left.
wife is a very liberal woman.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, famous story, Act 10. Now, this will probably make people mad, but I supported Act 10 for the reason that it helped with local budgets, and I was in charge of a budget, so that was the reason. There was things I didn't like about it, and there's things I hated about it now, because it didn't recognize the fact that freezing levies, tax levies in communities, didn't allow you to meet the challenge of inflation over time. So now all these communities are asking for more money. But famous interview done by a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, my wife and I, in 2 different rooms talking to 2 different reporters on Act 10, she said, worst thing ever. I'm going, that makes sense from a city perspective. And it was the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Now, we used to have arguments about politics. We don't have those arguments anymore, because we've learned and adapted that we can share the viewpoints without getting pissed off and angry.
Disagree without being disagreeable, right?
Yeah, but it took a few years, because I'm a hothead sometimes, and so is she. But we've been married 39 years.
How comfortable is your Davenport, Steve, by the way?
Very comfortable. And I have like 3 to pick from, so it's good. That's good.
Nice. Well, that's a great question. Thank you. Any other
Right up
questions? We have time for 2 more questions.
Right up front, right here.
Yep.
Right in front of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm from Menominee Falls.
Menominee Falls.
Menominee
Nice.
Falls in Waukesha County.
Yeah, I used to play soccer over there.
Oh, good.
Not very good, but
So I've been thinking about something, and I wanted to ask what you think, if this might work. What if we put a cap on the length of time a campaign could last, 90 days or 100 days? Kamala Harris has been campaigning for 100 days.
Big fan.
And what if we put some kind of cap on the money that could be spent?
Also big fan.
Do you think it would work? Do you think we could do it?
I mean, I like the idea. Cap on the money and the time. There's a lot of people with a lot of money that their voice speaks louder than yours. But I'm really glad that you made that you brought that up, because that is what it's going to take, is I think a lot of people saying that in order to get it to change. But what do you guys think?
That's great. Both of them. We have to have some structure to it, because it's crazy. Right now we have like 10 really, really mega rich people deciding everything. How our social media works, how campaigns are run, what ads we see, who gets elected. I don't want that. I don't like that at all. And it's an example of how something can just get so out of hand. There's always a course correction at some point. Hopefully that idea, or one of the ideas that you shared, is going to be one of those answers, because that makes too much sense.
I couldn't agree more on wanting campaigns to be shorter too, because I think we have this perpetual campaign season that creates this campaign industrial complex where there's this economy that exists around these people who are constantly running for office all of the time. And I think this year has been so interesting, because going from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris for the Democrats, do we feel like we needed that much more time to hear from Kamala Harris? She became the candidate in July. We had the convention in August, and she's been had the debate in September, campaigning for the last couple months. I feel like that's plenty of time to have these types of campaigns. We need to condense this time schedule in some way, whether it's shortening the primaries or doing something like you said, capping the amount of time that people can can spend on elections. I think that's a terrific idea.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen at some point because people are just going to get fed up.
Yeah, I think, you look at this room and everyone's like, yeah, I mean, if this many, does anybody think they should be longer, by the way? Serious question.
Raise your hands, yeah.
Serious question. But I think that's really it. And so the question is, if this is how we all feel, what's an actual tangible step we as people can do to make this the reality, guys? Like, is there an answer for that? Or like, should we ask friggin' AI how to do it?
Interesting. Use the technology.
Use the technology. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take us over in 4 years. But I think while it's here, we fix the environment, we get the money out of politics. Let's see if it works. I don't know.
So you've got us solving the Middle East, abortion rights.
I threw a lot out here.
Money in politics.
I regret half of it, actually.
No, the answer is right in front of us. It's voting. It's a cliched answer, but sometimes the cliched answer is the correct one. It is voting. It is having sustained action in Wisconsin. And I'm going to go back to that example of how we got rid of the gerrymander in the state of Wisconsin. It took years of organizing to do that. It took every election that flipped the balance of power in the Supreme Court. It took electing and then re-electing Governor Tony Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul. Every election over and over and over matters. And sustained action over and over and over, putting pressure on your elected officials, keeping them accountable, all of that matters. And it's going to sound cliche, and you hear it from all over the place, and we all get sick of it, and the most important election of our life, blah, 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 blah. It's true, though. You have to continue to be engaged, be involved, and vote every opportunity that you can.
Absolutely. And I'll take it one step further. So I worked in the private sector for 20 years. I worked in television, not on the camera side, on the other side. And I retired from that job after 28 years, but I was still pretty young. So I wanted to get involved in our community, Oak Creek. So I started on the zoning appeals board, which meets once in a while. Then I became an alderman. Then I became common council president. We had a mass shooting in our community right around the time I became mayor. So I think the way that I would approach this is it's not just about voting. You have to be involved in your community. So I always used to ask this question of people if they knew their mayor. You'd be surprised, like half the city doesn't even know who the mayor is, which is inexcusable because most of the decisions that affect your life are made locally, not like in Washington, locally, like the budget stuff. So I think sign up for something, even if it's a volunteer. My zoning appeals was a volunteer job. You're not going to make a lot of money. I just told this story to a group the other day. I had retired, so I could do this. But the pay for being mayor of Oak Creek is $16,000 a year. It's still $16,000 a year. But I committed to the job because I think it needed to be done at a time when we were like floundering and not getting things done. So I sucked it up and did it. And granted, my previous life allowed me to do that, but that's one example. You make your own example. But don't be one that says, I'm going to go and vote and that'll change America. You change America by getting involved in your community, first local, county, state, and see what happens. And that involvement, one, gives you a better understanding what the issues are, what really happens with budgets, local budgets. Most of your communities spend millions of dollars every year. You may not know one, other than public safety, one item that they spend it on, other than the obvious stuff. You should know what that is. You should know what your local leaders think about things, and you should work to make your communities better. You have stronger communities, you'll have a stronger state, you'll have a stronger country. Right now, we're sort of spinning our wheels. People are not getting involved. This is the part that usually angers people as well. We spend way too much time watching TV. The best thing I've done recently, and I used to have to watch a lot of TV for the job, I don't watch that much TV. You can find everything you need in a quick internet search now. You don't need to spend 3 hours watching all the networks talking about politics in probably the most insane way ever. Invest your time wisely. And
TikTok.
Not TikTok. Not a fan of TikTok.
That was a joke.
I'm quitting Twitter in 2 weeks after the election because I'm just
for you.
It's just not worth it. So don't waste your time on that. I think that's sort of a long-winded way to say just get involved in your community. That'll be the start of something.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Last one?
Yeah, we have time for one last question.
Right here.
Oh, yep, I got you.
All
I
right.
got you. And thank you for that question, by the way.
Great question.
Good evening, all. I'm Tony from Greenfield. They're kind of right on the Greendale-Greenfield border, so actually hyper aware of the Luann Bird, Bob Donovan race. Question kind of about social media, just pivoting off what you guys just said. Social can be very good from a community standpoint, community building, engagement, what have you, but it's clearly had an impact and it will have impact on elections going forward. What do you guys see as the role of social going forward, and how does it impact or negatively impact going forward, and kind of where do you see it factoring in? Because we got Kamala was brat, and then that was cool, but that's like 5 months ago. That's like feels like 2 years ago at this point. And Trump's got his own social platform that he owns, that he makes money on. So a lot of interest around that. Thanks, and tell your folks I said hi.
Okay, watch for deer. No, that is a really good question. The social media, and especially as AI gets more and more powerful and AI starts writing news, there's a lot of news stories around AI. So what do you guys think? How do you use social media in a wise way, and how should we as people be thinking about it?
Yeah, I think it's becoming so much more fragmented. And I think you just look at how each platform, each social media network seems to have its own individual ecosystem now. And there's not really this shared reality that we have anymore. And I think I don't really see that changing anytime soon. I think we're going to be continuing to get more fragmented because of this. And the algorithms kind of push us into the extremes in so many different ways. But I still think it can be an effective tool, especially in the journalism environment, to engage with people on an individual level and to just get your work out into the world. Obviously, I'm a pretty active Twitter user, so I've had to kind of navigate the changes in the Elon Twitter over the last couple of years, which frankly has not been terrific. But I think it's just an indicator of where these things are going, and I think some of the rich folks might see what Elon has done to Twitter and might want to do something similar to other platforms. So I think it's going to be important to kind of stay vigilant. And I also think this is part of why I think group chats have become so popular this year, is because people are sick of the dynamic on social media and want a place online where they can have conversations that are a lot less toxic. And so I think that's why people are gravitating to the group chat instead of necessarily posting in the Facebook comments or posting in the Twitter mentions.
I would say that I said before, I'm getting off Twitter. I'll miss it because it's a source of entertainment. I consider myself a creative person, and
we'll see if you really get off Twitter. Yeah,
challenge accepted. I think that it is when used properly, it's a great tool, but it's destructive. I think what it's done to children is ridiculous. Young boys, young girls terrorized. You used to be able to walk. There was always bullies, right? Like there was always a bully when I was in high school. But you could walk away from that and be safe at home. Now the bully comes into your home, into your bedroom, when you're laying in bed at night, and they can still bully you. And to me, that's like the worst part of this. So an unstructured world where there's no rules for social media, I'll never be a fan of. And I think right now, for me personally, the negative far outweighs the positive. And for me, my personal decision is to sort of step back. I just don't see it being worthwhile for what I do. I don't know that there's value there for me. And I hope that I've advocated for schools to say, you know what? No smartphones in schools. And I know some parents get pissed off at me about that, but I just don't think it's a positive for schools and education. And I think time will show, because a lot of places are moving in that direction, that's sort of where we're going. There's always the ebb and flow of technology. And right now, smartphones and all that connectivity is the way to do it. I don't know that it'll be the same in 10 years. So something else will be replacing.
I mean, I think that something else will be artificial intelligence, which actually miraculously was not brought up in any of the debates, It's really going to control us over the next few years, and nobody's even talking about it. So that's a whole other podcast. If you want last week's podcast, we talked about that. But I do think to both of your points, like on the social media, I think it is important that we use it for the good it can do and pump some good into it, because like these robots, they learn from us. So if all they've learned is the stuff we put online, guys, we are screwed, all right? So I think if you are putting stuff on social media, find a way to make it positive, because these robots are made in our image, and I hope we're happy with what we've made. But, and then beyond that, I think it's doing things like this, coming together to listen to a conversation with people who care about the issues and are willing to talk with them and answer your questions. And you guys for coming here and listening and giving your questions. This is a really important dynamic that I think if we lose it, we're going to lose the humanity in all of this. So just big round of applause for you guys for coming out. Big round of applause for Dan and Steve. Give them a big round of applause. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you. This has been the Cripescast Live, all right? So everybody keep her moving and watch for deer. And do tell your folks I says hi. I mean that. All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Folks, that is it for this week's episode of the Cripescast. Huge thanks to everybody who came out to the live show at Vivarium. Thanks to Vivarium for hosting. Steve Scaffidi for coming on. You can check him out, the Steve Scaffidi Show. It's on WTMJ in Milwaukee, by the way. And Dan Shafer, you can check him out on the Recombobulation Area.news. You can get subscribe to that and get it sent to you. So huge thanks to those fellas for coming on. Thank you to all of you listening. Make sure you go vote. And when you vote, I hope you can vote for truth and vote for Midwest Nice. And keep her moving and watch for deer. Bye-bye.
So roll out the barrel and get the band brewing. Life's got you down. Just keep her moving. It's on Wisconsin. The Badgers say it's the old Wisconsin Jubilee.
You know, sometimes when you're ice fishing, you put your foot in the walleye hole and go ass over tea kettle and you think you're done. No, you gotta keep her moving.